Walmart makes a big announcement regarding future operations and employment. The world's largest retailer announced plans today to build its brand new 1.2 million square foot facility in Plainfield.
If you come to Central Indiana and you mention Plainfield, people are probably going to say warehouses. That's what we're known for. We have about 50 million square feet of warehouse space.
We go from a rural to heavy industrial. A lot of warehouses and high-density apartments.
Since I've been here, there's probably been at least 20 warehouses built, and these are 200,000 plus square foot buildings that they can build in a couple of months.
I'm partial to Plainfield. I obviously got hired here to start my career. I think Plainfield is, we take care of each other just a little bit better.
Plainfield Fire was organized in 1923. We've grown from neighbors helping neighbors and bucket brigades all the way to a full-blown career fire department.
We truly embody what family is, and when one of our members is suffering, we all suffer. We all rally around them and provide support to them.
We're I would say, a smaller suburban community. The department itself is growing over time, and from when I started to now, it's grown immensely. From 70 folks, now we're about 100.
The town gives us everything that we ask for, the chief administrative staff. We got all kinds of new trucks. We got EDOs now. We have a squad.
And we have a lot of different types of calls based on, we have interstate, warehouses, residential areas, so we're busy with all different kinds of runs.
We hold ourselves to a pretty good standard, and the bar's pretty high. Try to do the best we can for the people that we serve.
We started this beautiful day in March, and we actually had scheduled training with a mutual aid department, which is Avon, talking about warehouse, like big box store fires.
We went to do a training at a warehouse that was under construction. They had just finished one, and they were in the process of pouring the floor for the other.
They're talking about what was going to happen in a fire, and we got hit for the alarm.
21 on the scene. Big commercial warehouse. We have nothing showing. We do have evacuation.
From where we were parked, we could see the building that we were dispatched to, and I didn't see anything, and just the area, we didn't get too excited. We didn't see any smoke.
I heard a report of the fire go out at the Walmart distribution facility. Didn't really think a whole lot about it. It's not uncommon that those happen here with 50 million square feet of warehouse space.
And normally when you get called to a warehouse fire, it's, they burnt a belt up, a grinder, trash compactor, something minuscule.
We were the first engine on scene, and the ladder was right in front of us. We had a mutual aid company that followed us there as well. So, just from the start, it was an odd run.
Nothing showing at the time. There was evacuation on the west side of the building. Told Stephen, who was driving, let's proceed to the east side, according to the notes. So we went to door E38, met with a bunch of guys flagging us down, said there was a fire in the rack system on the second floor.
It wasn't really that big of a deal. I remember walking in, I didn't even put my mask on because you could see fine. You could hear the sprinklers going. I remember I stretched, I had a line with me, and I had our high-rise kit, and we went up to the second floor of this picket system.
We got standpipe set up pretty quickly. We had a line from the apparatus put in pretty quickly as well, and we were able to, I would say within about 8 minutes, we had 2 lines in place and we were flowing water and to where we thought the fire was, where they showed us, and we, did our thing. I mean, as an engine company, we had 3 engines working together to put the 2.5s in service, and the truck company was doing their job of searching and pulling the supply into the aisle so we could put it out, and the sprinklers were working like they should be, and we were just doing our thing, and everything was going well to what we thought.
Even when I arrived, though, there was nothing evident from the outside. There was nothing showing from the outside. I went and met with the incident commander. I assumed initially the incident safety officer role for the incident, donned my PPE, and I made my way into the building, which would be common practice, just to get the conditions, see what's going on. Once I got inside, I realized pretty quickly this was going to be a larger incident. We had a substantial amount of smoke and a huge space, but nothing that still raised a concern.
We proceeded in with a slight haze in the building, didn't think much of it. We could still see all the lights and everything. Once we hit the racks, we got up top is when we were met with heavy smoke.
There was no heat because the water was so cold it was pouring down on us. Our thermal imaging camera didn't sense any heat signatures on anything. So it took away all the things I'm used to using when I can't see. I felt a little blind. I was able to put my hand up on my mask and shield some of the water that was pouring down on us, and I was able to see with my eyes sections of fire. So everything that I saw with my eyes, we put out. Again, no heat whatsoever.
Even when I got to the second floor of the PIC mod, which was in the middle of the building, it was a huge 4-story unfinished building within the building. When I made my way to the second floor, the fire was reported. I was met by company officers, said they got the fire under control. They had a line where the fire was at. And they felt pretty confident that they had this thing taken care of. As I made my way down, crews were going out to start changing bottles. The smoke conditions weren't terrible. You could see smoke, but I was able to not be on air for majority of that time. As I made my way down to the aisle where the fire was actually at, where the line was at, as I got closer, the smoke conditions got worse. Put on my face piece, went down to the area, saw no actual fire. So I retreated a little bit. On the way in, we'd got a report that there was 55 unaccounted associates from Walmart in the building. So Walmart wasn't able to account for 55 of the people that were supposed to be at work when they evacuated the building. Once we shifted focus, I couldn't get on my radio. We didn't have the ability to communicate inside the PIC mod to outside. At some point, I was able to dig into my fire gear and pull my cell phone out. And so my communication with our incident commander outside was actually on a cell phone. So I'm carrying a $6,000 radio inside of a building that I can't use, but my iPhone would in fact reach out to the incident commander. And so I was able to make a phone call and told him, hey, I need some more companies inside. So we start looking for these 55 missing employees.
At that time, we knew it was about a 37-acre building. So we got the engine crew where they were. We started doing our methodical search in the fire area, looking for people.
We're gonna go for a bottle swap. Me and Ryan were going out, and as we walked by, I told Chief Dixon, I said, I think I feel like we got knocked down if we can get some of these sprinklers shut off so we can see. I make a radio transmission that it's under control and that we need to ventilate the building. So we've had substantial fires in warehouses in Plainfield. We've had fires that the sprinkler system puts out. After a little bit, you get cold smoke, you get just a smoldering fire, and you can't see anything. So you shut the sprinkler down. We've been wildly successful with that. In this fire, we shut the sprinkler down, initially called for the pump to be shut down. I kind of on the radio traffic, you would hear me say, don't shut the pump down yet because we're using the standpipe. We need to kill just the risers for the sprinkler heads that are flowing on that second floor.
We need to get the riser shut off or turn the fire pump off. We've got lines in standby on that. When fire prevention gets here, we need to get them to isolate these risers. We're in the center of the buildings in their rack storage. So we can't turn the fire pump off. We're using the standpipe system.
And then eventually we get to the point we feel confident, let's go ahead and shut the pump down so we can slow the water flow down. We can try to increase visibility to try to locate the 55 missing Walmart associates.
Right. So what we're going now is the primary search. The fire's still good. We have a count from the warehouse people of how many people are still missing.
I don't have an update on that. Initial report was 55.
We thought the fire was out, under control, I would say 15, 20 minutes in. We were working on transitioning from an attack to a search. So we were trying to figure out a way to divide and conquer as far as tasks.
We started on one end of the cube, and I was in one aisle and he was in another. And we would walk back and forth. And there was little breaks in the aisle so I would see him, and we were pretty much in step all the way to the end. And we did this 2 or 3 times. When we got to the end, I would skip a row and then he would skip over me, and we would just cover more rows that way. By the time we got to like the 3rd or 4th time doing it, we got to the end and Lieutenant King wasn't there.
At one point, I turned my back to talk to an employee about getting some semi-trailers moved from the overhead doors, so I was not looking at the structure. And I heard a neighboring battalion chief ask if he'd started a second alarm. Didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me at the time because we had this fire. This fire was under control. We're moving on to the next phase. And when I turned around, in that minute and a half that I had turned my back, the conditions had changed drastically. And I knew we were in for a long day.
Sign ladder, a Wayne Township ladder, and an Avon engine to the floor above to start the surge. Then almost at the same time, I hear them tell me that they have fire on the floor above. I hear ladder 84 from Wayne Township, who's on the roof, tell us we have fire through the roof. There was a moment of disbelief there. Can't be fire through the roof. The fire's out. It's not just under control, the fire's out.
I remember looking up and down this conveyor belt. I can see from end to end, it's clear, there's the haze that's always been there. I was like, what fire? What fire through the roof? We just walked through where there was fire. There's no fire. I don't know what he's talking about.
I was shocked. Fire through the roof. I mean, the fire's out.
I would say that the conditions changed so rapidly that, we weren't prepared for, just how quickly it did change.
And then this banging started. You hear just metal pipes just falling and landing on the concrete.
I made my way back to the stairs. We'd already been to the floor above. We'd already checked for extension. There was no signs of any fire extension to the floor above. And what I see at the stairwell is a tremendous fire. Not a small fire, not a little bit of rollover, but a tremendous fire. And almost immediately I know we're in trouble.
I ran down that aisle and made a turn to come around the outside of that picket system. And it was like you just ran into a curtain. Like it just instantly went black. And I remember just a few seconds ago, I was looking from one side of the building as far as I could normally see to the other, no problem. I'm like, where did this come from? This fire is on the 3rd and 4th floor and it's just all burnt.
So I ran back to the door. Since we were the first ones operating inside, I had kind of known who was inside. Noticed Chief Dixon, Lieutenant King, and his backstepper that day didn't come out. So I started trying to hit up on the radio for a mayday. Radios weren't working, so I just started screaming it. At that time, our captain had shown up, and he ran back over to the command post where the battalion was, and we marked the mayday.
Mayday, mayday, mayday. 2 firefighters down, missing, 1249.
My role typically when I go to those incidents, I don't get, as the fire chief, I don't get involved in the operations and stuff. I'm just there to support, be a liaison between the fire department and the occupants. But for some reason, the radio traffic got my attention. Knew this was not a usual thing. Mayday happened. I was in a pretty decent position by the service door to talk to our crews. Had a couple individuals say, "We know where they're at. We're going back in." And I just had a gut feeling that, fire service history going back to 1999, cold storage fire claimed 6 firefighters' lives. And that wasn't going to happen that day on my watch.
Fire chief was telling me, hold on. And I asked him, I said, "Are they out?" And he said, "Hold on, I'm working on it." And I said again, "Are they out, chief?" And he said, "Hold on." And I had this funny feeling, and I'm like, I know they're not out. And the only thing I could think of is I'm watching a fire go to my friends. I'll be honest with you, what I thought in my head was they're gonna die.
Turn and see that 3rd and 4th floor was just rocking. Like it was just solid fire. There was no way. Stuff is still collapsing. You can't see where it's collapsing at. And I'm still on this giant picket system that's basically just scaffolding. But I have no idea where Lieutenant King is.
I run into Lieutenant King, who's on engine 121, and he and Ladder 121 are the only 2 companies that should be operating on that fire floor. Everybody else is outside changing bottles. And I can't find the ladder truck or the ladder company, and I'm a little panicked as I run back and forth trying to find them. And I kind of surmise they must have got out. But Lieutenant King meets me and tells me that he's not able to locate his jump seater. I'm not leaving Matt, and Matt's not leaving Adam.
I knew I wasn't going to leave without him. I knew that Chief Dixon that was in there with me was not going to leave without me. So, it was realization that if I don't find him, what's next?
We hear sounds of collapse, of metal crashing upon metal throughout the building. And it's loud and the intensity increases with frequency. And eventually you start to think the next one is the last one. We're running out of time. Probably the first time in my career that I've ever been truly panicked. Because I thought, if we don't find him soon, none of us are leaving this building.
I thought about, my fireman, Adam Davies. He's got 5 children at home. My 2 kids and my wife. Chief Dixon's got 2 boys at home. Those things hit you, in like in a 10-second span, but it's all real. You don't think about it beforehand, but when it hits, it's like, what's next and how do we get out of here and how do we, live to fight another day.
And then I remember looking down, I saw 2 figures coming down the main aisle. And they were kind of just holding on to each other and pulling. And they get close enough to me, I can recognize one of them's Lieutenant King. And I was so excited to see him. I was like, I remember saying, I'm not having fun anymore. Like, can we leave? And he's like, absolutely.
There was a line that was set up from the pumper to where our location was. So we were able to, find that 3-inch supply.
At the time, it was about providing a second means of water, but it did provide us, as smoke conditions changed, it provided us the way out of the building.
I kept my foot on it, kicking my way along. I remember I ran into a bunch of forklifts that I remember when I walked by, so I knew I was close to the door.
Once we got to where that shack was, we were able to see the door.
When Ryan said, I see him, that was probably some of the best words I ever heard.
asked the firefighter that was kneeled down in front of me, who's the Mayday? Because that will tell me where they should be so we can go find them. And he says, it's you. Complete relief in that moment. To know that I don't have to go back into what would appear to be hell.
And everything else after that didn't really matter. No matter what happened, our day was going to get better. Because at the time, I thought we had lost our firefighters.
We went defensive. We've taken a defensive stance since then. All people are accounted for. That includes firefighters and employees of Walmart.
Our crews are in buildings that are under construction all the time within our jurisdiction. We have a good fire prevention division. They have 3 folks that are inspecting warehouse after warehouse and apartment building after apartment building. And they do a very good job. This building had been on the radar. Somebody within our prevention staff had said this building may cause us a significant problem. They had talked about the fact that they had requested at one point is what is the weight capacity of the PIC mod when we fill things up with water within the PIC mod? Will it collapse just from a busted sprinkler head? One of our company officers that responded knew the building inside out. He had inspected it. He had worked part-time with our fire prevention folks, conducting inspections there. And so he knew the building. He knew some of the hazards that were going to exist.
I was contacted early into that facility operation, before they even really became operational, about spacing for the fire extinguishers. I was a part-time inspector, so I was still a full-time. I was at the time a full-time fire lieutenant. And I walk in and I see the monstrosity that they had built. And I immediately no longer cared about the extinguishers. I was very concerned about, how are we going to access that as a fire department? How are people going to get out of that facility if they're on the 4th floor of this? I mean, this is bigger than some of our hotels.
Yeah, to describe the building, first you have to, looking at it from the outside, it's just big. It's huge. It's 1,700 feet long, 650 feet wide, 40-some feet high. It's an immense building from the outside. But like a lot of mega warehouses, you really don't know what's inside. I got a good awareness of what was inside. Some of the people who were involved in the incident described it, and then I saw some pictures. And my first reaction was it looked like somebody was trying to build an aircraft carrier inside the building. You have this immense open space. Then the PIC module occupies a huge section of it. It's over 800 feet long. And it's like a 4-story building, but it's all made out of racking material.
I saw the walking surfaces that they were putting in. I knew that water was not going to be able to travel between floors. So I was concerned about the weight that was going to be added if a sprinkler activation happened.
20 miles of aisles in the PIC module that are just lined with shelving that have everything that you might imagine that would be in a large department store or a store that sells everything.
Fire was actually one of the things that was the lowest on my list of concerns with that facility.
It was determined that the best place to start was looking at they had what is known as a VESDA smoke system that is supposed to be extremely sensitive and will activate a smoke alarm inside the building for a very minute amount of smoke. Next thing we looked at was sprinkler activation and determining which areas of the sprinkler system activated first. That is how the system was narrowed down to the primary area of origin for the fire was based off of where the first alarms were coming in at.
The first part of the event went pretty much as someone might expect. There was a fire that was ignited on the second level of the PIC module in one of the aisles. No one was ever able to determine exactly what caused the fire, but the time and the location, plus or minus a few feet, is pretty well known. With all of those combustibles, as we've seen typically with a lot of other fires, you have a fire that flares up very quickly. Within less than a minute, there's a pretty significant fire. But also, as we'd expect, there were sprinklers everywhere, and the sprinkler system reacted quickly and started applying water directly to that fire. So our expectation is that the sprinklers should be able to control the fire, if not fully extinguish it.
These fire protection systems are designed to operate in these mega warehouses for 60, 90, and 120 minutes. We are not accustomed to pulling up on the scene of an incident knowing that the fire protection features of that building are designed to operate for 2 hours without our direct intervention. The more complex the building, the more complex the fire protection system is. And the components designed in that building are not just the fire sprinkler systems. There's other things that go with the contents of the building that are designed for the configurations of the building. And those are things that fire departments need to understand how to operate within.
It was about 10 minutes from the time this first sprinkler flow occurred that was recorded, and the smoke detection system recorded the fire at the same time. Eyewitnesses saw it at basically the same time. About 10 minutes after that, the fire department was on the scene, and it took close to 10 minutes from arrival on the scene to get to the location where the fire was. When they arrived, the fire had been contained and almost extinguished by the sprinkler system. There was some residual fire, but mostly there was a lot of smoke and fog from the water, and a little bit of burning residual material. But that was extinguished readily by the sprinklers and one hose line that was brought in. So up to that point, we had a situation that was pretty much what we would expect with a fire in a sprinklered building. Over the next several minutes, they finished overhauling, and basically after checking around the fire, the level above to check for extension, doing a pretty good check of the area, the firefighters were confident, and I think justifiably confident, that the fire was out. There was no indication that there was any residual fire left, and there were no indications of fire extension anywhere. So at that point, they said, well, we need to get the sprinklers shut off, and we need to start clearing the smoke out of the building, because there was a lot of smoke inside the building.
The decision to turn the sprinkler system off and the valves off was made after we thought we had the fire under control. Fire was reported on the second floor. Fire was extinguished on the second floor. Crews went to the third floor, checked for extension, found nothing. Validated by more than one individual. So our next move was to try to minimize property damage, reduce the smoke, increase visibility, was to shut down the sprinkler system, which was standard for the fires we responded to, and that's really standard in the fire service. That is what is taught. And you're dealing with a rack storage mezzanine system that is a lot of cardboard, a lot of plastic, that's holding a lot of weight, a lot of water. To make things safer for everybody, our goal is let's shut the water off Not necessarily as soon as we can, but when we can, once we're confident the fire's out, to help mitigate the next phase.
Another 10 to 15 minutes went by, during which the preoccupation became checking for occupants, because there was a report that there could be as many as 55 employees that were unaccounted for. So firefighters started dividing up the area to check if there actually were any employees there. At the same time, there were firefighters on the roof who had been sent to the roof to check. They reported there was nothing going on the roof, and they were actually in the process of coming down to help with the search inside. When very suddenly, the fire erupted through the roof, and the whole situation changed in probably 60 to 90 seconds.
The roof in majority of these warehouses have a steel decking that has a TPO membrane roof, which is basically 6 inches of foam covered by a rubber roof flare that goes over the top of it. The foam itself, that when it is heated, it melts and or catches fire, or has direct flame impingement, it will turn into a liquid, and that liquid is flammable. So basically it's like a solid roof of flammable liquid laying in solid form, so that when it heats, it starts melting and running whichever direction the roof happens to be sloped, and just spreads the fire from side to side.
There was a major fire up in the upper part of the PIC module that was quickly raging out of control. And the timing coincided with, it was just at the moment that the pumps had been shut off that supplied water to the sprinkler system. The big question mark that left was, how did the fire get from the second level, where everything was basically extinguished, out under control, to suddenly erupt up above? We did, every kind of analysis of what might have happened that was possible. And the only plausible theory is, during the first minute or so before the sprinklers on the second level activated, there were openings in that rack system, and a spark, an ember, something got up into the upper level and found a place to hide among the cardboard boxes and packing materials up there, and then just smoldered for 35 to 40 minutes before anything happened. And then bad timing, just as the water supply for the sprinklers was being shut off, is when that fire decided that it was time to burn. And it took off a second time. It's really almost as if there were two fires, because the major fire didn't come from the first one. The first one didn't get out of control again. This was like a second fire.
These shell buildings are built out with fire sprinklers at the roof deck. And so at the ceiling, those are typically ESFR. That's early suppression, fast response. They need to operate quickly to contain the fire where it is. But there's also control mode sprinklers. That's what's most common, with the fact that they're contained to contain the fire to where it starts and allow us as firefighters to extinguish the fire.
Somehow, this fire must have gotten past the sprinkler defenses before the sprinklers activated. There's a lag time to say, generally we think of it as being around a minute. Oftentimes it's less than a minute, but you can develop a pretty sizable fire in that time. And if a spark, an ember, something finds something to ignite 2 levels above in a place where nobody sees it and nobody would think of looking for it, that can happen.
And for firefighters to understand how the different things operate, you know, from the sprinkler systems and the racking systems, the different ways that you can control water inside of a building, is for our firefighters to understand that, because most of our rural fire departments in Indiana have fire pumps on their buildings. They don't need them. They've never experienced that, but just trying to get that knowledge out there when we have buildings that have storage tanks and fire pumps. It's there for a reason, because we need additional water to be able to use to help control a fire inside of one of these buildings.
One of the issues that has arisen is that firefighters have confirmed that they actually shut off part of the sprinkler system at the area where the fire was burning when they arrived and started fighting this fire last Wednesday.
The fire suppression system was ordered to turn off with the fire when you felt the fire was under control. Was it or was it not ordered off?
The fire suppression system was not ordered off. The risers in the affected area were turned off.
Anytime that you have an incident like that, people are always looking to blame somebody. It kind of hurt. I know social media beat us up very, very quickly after the incident. People were looking for someone to blame, and the easiest one to blame is the fire department.
It wasn't even days after the fire. It was pretty quick. And to be honest, at first you get mad. At first you say, you wasn't there, you have no idea what we experienced, you have no idea the conditions, the decisions we made, and you second guess. I mean, I remember sitting in the parking lot at night, you know, the second night thinking, did we screw this up? Is this really our fault?
You know, we were against the 8 ball. You know, reports came out that the alarm had dropped several times before, that we weren't called. Communications, we had no radio traffic from inside to outside, but crews inside, and it's a big enough area that there's no way you can just talk to each other and get it out effectively and spread the ground as fast as we did.
Felt like a piece of crap, because everybody's like, you guys burnt this building down, you didn't do the right tactics, everybody, you know, everybody's an expert.
Our chief took it on the chin quite a bit, you know. Not only did A shift and a general take it, the chief took a big brunt of it. A lot of the administration did.
It affects your people and your organization when others provide their input to something they had no involvement in. That affects your organization, internally and externally. Something I never thought I'd have to deal with.
Everybody trying to block out the social media, trying to stand up for each other on social media.
And then, what was a few months later, the great lawsuit happens.
6 months after a massive fire destroyed a Plainfield Walmart distribution center, the retail giant is now taking legal action, pursuing a tort claim against dozens of local fire departments. The claim is for property loss and damages, with the current amount totaling more than $5 million.
You and everybody in there is personally named, not only department, you know, they went after the snack truck people. You know, and that's just really a sucker blow, because it's like, what, you know, you almost died for what? A bunch of Walmart supplies? Like, that's kind of makes you question the job and, you know, why you do that kind of stuff.
But I would say Plainfield is a fire department that trains hard. We have a lot of warehouses. This wasn't this wasn't the warehouse we've been into the first time. We have tons of these buildings, and we respond to them daily. And I think we're a pretty aggressive fire department. And so it hurt. It made us mad. Our organization felt like it got punched. As part of leadership, I felt like we were continually encouraging our folks, because there were days that they were down.
Everybody banded together. You know, I guess that's the only cliche way to really say it, but, you know, we stood by the administration because they stood by us. It was just a bad fire that was way ahead of what we could produce.
I still believe to this day that we did an amazing job, and I'll stand by that. but it's one of those things you have to get over time and kind of, control your controllables. And I'm a prideful person, and my challenge has been to myself and my crew and the people around me is to always make yourself better and make the department better.
Because at the end of the day, we're in the business of people. That's the public, but it's also us. Also us as firefighters and our families, those that operated there for hours on end with no sleep, no rest, have to go home with their families. And they've still got to try to conduct normal life while they're home. But they're still dealing with the baggage they brought home of thinking their brother or sister just died in that fire, because for a split second, that's what they thought happened. I've been in fire service for 27 years. And when you started, you didn't talk about your mental thoughts. You didn't talk about your feelings. That was not cool. It was not accepted. You just wore it. You dealt with it. You found your own ways to deal with it. The fire service has changed. Mental illness is a big deal. If we bottle those up and we don't talk to somebody, we don't express how we feel, it never goes away. It's never gonna go away. I'm never gonna forget this fire. I'm never gonna forget March 16th, 2022. That's not gonna happen. But the worst thing I could do is not talk about it. Not talk about it with my spouse, not talk about it with fellow firefighters, not talk about it with the public. That's only gonna make it worse.
It's all a blur, because from the time of the incident till the next morning, it seemed like we were always there.
And there was an emotional toll that took on all of us, at least those that were involved in that first alarm assignment, that I honestly don't think any of us were prepared for, and any of us had ever experienced up to that point.
I'd say mental health-wise, a lot of us took a beating after the fact. We're a very prideful department. We take a lot of, pride in what we do every day. We train. We try to do the job to the best of our abilities, no different than any department around us. But, I think it took a lot of months, days, and conversations with my wife, friends, church family to really see, what my issues were.
At first I didn't realize it because he was just home and happy to be home. But then as the days went on, all of a sudden he was more withdrawn. He would go to the basement and he would watch TV by himself, but yet the kids were home and I was home. Or we would go do things and he would just not be present. Didn't realize that this was PTSD. I thought it was just him trying to be a man and not showing his feelings because that would show weakness.
You have an event like that to where you're affecting yourself and your family and the people around you. You have to kind of look at yourself internally. I think that's probably the first time in my career that I had a true conversation about the day with my spouse.
You are out and about and trying to save everybody's lives and you'll die for them, but maybe think about living for your family. And that seemed to really get his attention.
I become angry, I become grumpy. I was focused on things that were well beyond my control from the fire. I went home and I couldn't figure out why I was mad. I couldn't figure out why I was frustrated. And honestly, my kids just seemed to do everything wrong. And eventually, some good friends pointed out maybe my kids weren't the problem. Maybe it was Dad.
We had some ups and downs at home from it. There was times that I knew that he needed his space to allow him to calm down and to think through things. But he always knew that he could come to me and talk.
I remember when I first got home, and everybody wants to know what happened, so I tell them. And I remember it wasn't until that night that one of my daughters woke up. She just wanted to be rocked back to sleep. And that's when it finally hits you, when you're by yourself and alone. And I remember crying, thinking I wouldn't have got this opportunity. Less than 24 hours ago, I would have been dead, and no one, it'd just been my wife.
We live a good way from Plainfield, so my wife had no idea the fire was even going on until other people were reaching out about the Mayday situation, because that went all over the news and social media. Well, my phone was in a fire truck, I got to her about 8 or 9 hours after the Mayday was called. So it hit her hard, the kids, once they realized what could have happened. It was different leaving to go to work.
There was a part of him that was almost scared, not to go back into a fire, not anything like that, but he was knowing that he could have lost a fellow friend, a fellow brother that day, broke him. Justin's not usually one to show his feelings or emotions, but feelings and emotions were shown, and I don't think he knew what to do with that. I think just the process of the severity of it all was just a lot to deal with at home. So, and then not only is he dealing with it at home, but he's also dealing with it at work, because there were a lot of things to decipher and go through to figure out how to be better for the next time.
My wife is a responder. She's a paramedic with another agency. She responded to the fire. She responded to the fire before the Mayday. And so she was sitting on the road. We've been married for 20 years. She knows who I am. She knows where I'm going to be on the fire. And then she can't hear my voice. She sees the fire through the roof, and she hears a Mayday transmitted.
Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. 2 firefighters down, missing, 1249.
The Mayday was hard. It was really hard to hear. I heard his voice. I knew that he was inside, and then I didn't hear his voice. So hearing the Mayday come out and knowing I didn't hear from him was tough. And then when I heard his voice is when everything calmed down a little bit.
I just completely ignored that she had to live that experience. And it took me a long time to say, kind of messed that one up a little bit. Because she also experienced the fire in a different way than I experienced the fire. But she had to sit on the road and maybe listen to her husband die.
Me personally, it weighed on me for weeks, months. Question my actions, question my job. Is the fire service still for me? Am I still as passionate as I was as a 22-year-old kid? Yeah, I still am that passionate. But it just puts everything in perspective. Makes you appreciate the relationships and the people you work with and how important they are to you.
And as we go in the fire service, and as you've been in any time in this job, you have to find a place to put things so that they don't eat at you all day or forever. I've seen people that they don't figure out where to put that. If you don't have a good stress reliever, a good way to express yourself in a way to not bottle it up, I've seen it eat people alive.
Most firemen will find solace in the firehouse, the kitchen table, each other, jokes, laughing. But sometimes when it's this big and it carries on, you have to find ways to communicate with people you love and just figuring out a way to talk through it.
If that same fire happened today, we would operate the fire protection system a little more longer, make it more priority to have a pumper on their system, and continue to let it flow well after we believe the fire's out. We may not even enter the space. We may just rely on the fire suppression system for an extra 20 or 30 minutes longer than we did before. But the trick is when you talk about people, and when there are people missing, when there's people unaccounted for, we've got to go save people. And that's what drove us to our actions that day, was when there's people involved.
I still don't know what I would change exactly. If it dropped today, I think I'd like to say I'd do it a little bit different, but hitting the things that we were hit with the amount of people on a first alarm, 55 people missing inside of a 37-acre building, 4 floors, and part of it, everybody got out.
The Walmart building's rebuilt. It's back on the roof. If me and Lieutenant King would have died that day, that building would still be on the roof today. It wouldn't have changed everything. The occupant of that building, they were going to throw everything in that building away, even if we stopped the fire and put it out. If the fire hadn't extended to the roof, they were still going to take the contents of that building and put them in dumpsters. And we could have lost our lives for what?
These warehouses that we have around here are notorious. You'll go into them 1 month, and the next month it will be a completely different setup. Know how the racking system is, know how their picking system is, how many people do they have, their accountability systems, are they reliable in knowing how many people are actually in their warehouse and whether it's not worth searching for. Just knowing the fire pumps and their systems and the best way to support those.
We all think it can't ever happen to us. We've seen these videos. We never thought it would happen to us or happen here, But we got a lot of square footage of warehouses, and those things can hold a lot of volume before things go bad. It makes you think, right? When we raise our right hand to do this job, we all are going to do what we're called to do, what we want to do. When you sit back and think how close you really were when things could have gone bad, it throws you off.
As far as going in to a fire like that, if there are people inside that we knew that there were people inside not accounted for, we're still going to go in. That's what we're here to do.
We said in the beginning, this was one of the biggest fires in our department history and somewhat the state and local history. So, knowing I was a part of that was not a joy. Knowing that we would be criticized and ridiculed for some of the things that we did. But knowing that we were all okay and I was home with my family was probably the most joy that I had.
We're always going to go where people are. But I think, for us, we're going to consider letting the sprinkler system work for up to an hour before we do anything. Before we actually commit folks into that environment. Because at the end of the day, we care about people the most and we care about stuff, but there is a line that if we'd have lost lives that day, they still would have thrown the stuff away. They still going to rebuild the building. There has to be a cost with that.